Namaskaram. Good morning and welcome to Daily Global Insights. This is episode number 120. Today is March 17, 2021 and I have with me Sridhar Chityalaji. Namaskaram Sridharji and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar and good morning to everybody.
In our main points today, China, Russia, Iran did not interfere in the 2020 election according to Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security. India to set up a new bank to exclusively fund infrastructure projects. Quad leaders hand Australia a big stick to fend off China. Russia gives Twitter a month to delete banned content or get blocked. The Fed must walk a fine line Wednesday as financial markets hang in the balance. In American news, China, Russia, Iran did not manipulate 2020 election results. I'm trying to make some head or tail of this, sir. We all know that we have two extreme views on what happened in these 2020 elections. And I'm trying to make sense of what this happened. Didn't the Director of National Intelligence say that there was interference?
I think we need to go back to 2016 elections. In 2016 elections, there was this constant and persistent threat that was made by the Democrats, and they used FBI to say that the Russians interfered in the elections, and as a consequence, President Trump won 2016 elections. As you probably know, that saga continued all through his presidential term. And then we got to 2020, and there has been allegations, or there has been what you call positions taken by the Republican side, especially, which is to say that this whole election was fraudulent. Now, you need to look at this report within the context of two things. One is there was this Washington Post errata, which was published much, much later, as it related to a telephone call that took place between the secretary, Raffensperger, and President Trump, which alleges that President Trump asked Raffensperger to use his influence and judgment to basically allocate few seats. This is the allegation that was made, right? And then today it turns out that that was not the case after listening to the released voice recording. So immediately Washington Post corrected with an errata, which is to say, hey, we were reliant on a wrong source. So much about journalism, right? So in the morning, you have this, which is to say that the Department of Justice report coming out. As you point out, right throughout the course of the elections, we have pointed out that there are various instances which anecdotally point out that there was interference and there was malpractices. The Democratic side took a position. All the court cases were dismissed, so therefore there was no maleficence. The question is, there was no investigation carried out, right? There was no investigation. A conclusion is, on a procedural or non-procedural matter or for unknown reasons, Supreme Court says, we're not taking up the case. They never said there was no fraud. Okay? They never said that. So what happens? Today the report comes out. President Trump makes a statement. And then by evening, you have the CNN making a report, which is to say, well, it is believed that there was a whole set of people whom President Trump may have used within the Russian intelligence to malign President Biden to interfere in the elections. So this is the whole kind of an architecture. And to your point, the Department of Homeland Security and Department of Justice, which in the first instance should have investigated at that point of time, chose not to do it, if you remember. William Barr was consistently being pushed, which is to say, why you guys are not investigating this? So this is the political satire that is playing out in the oldest democracy in the world. So we're never going to get to the truth unless and until we have a thorough and complete investigation. Some states are planning to, for example, state of Georgia is going to release the Fulton County or whichever county, appropriate, those declassify and release those documents, which is the voter ballots. So same thing in Wisconsin and Michigan and so on. They're trying to do, but at the end of the day, unless and until there is a thorough investigation, Sriji, there's not going to be truth coming out. So therefore, we're going to be continuously in this situation for some more time, or through the presidency of Biden as well, these accusations flying on either side.
50 House Democrats call on Biden to slash the defense budget. The defense budget is still being computed, isn't it? And why do they want to slash it?
The defense budget is always provisioned, as you probably know, because it is, if you have incurred $550 billion last time, you're going to be incurring $550 billion. So just to, those numbers, plus or minus, if you remember, that there was some small cuts made, but the number is still big. $750 to $780 billion in that specific range. It toggles between $550 to $700 billion kind of a range. Lloyd Austin has asked, and Jim Davidson had asked Vice Admiral that budgets needs to be included because the reason is we have not enough money to combat Chinese threat. So the question, therefore, is who are these 50 House Democrats who want to weaken the United States by cutting the defense budget, when actually the defense budget needs to increase given the imminent threat that United States and its allies face in the Asia-Pacific, South China, Indo-Pacific, South China, and Indian Ocean regions.
Now, Senator Manchin calls the border surge a crisis. As scrutiny grows, the border situation makes immigration bill much harder, according to Senator Lindsey Graham. And Biden says that he has no plans at the moment to travel to the southern border. Can you please summarize for us what has changed in the last few days and why suddenly everybody is waking up to this reality? This was a self-inflicted, wound maybe that the Democrats did to themselves.
Well, this whole border issue and what you call as the phrase that is basically used is not retain, which is namely capture and release policy has been ever since that was done. We have had abnormal kind of inflow and influx of illegal aliens into the country. What is the synopsis? The synopsis of this: there's an abnormal increase, and the number is quite staggering. Anything between 100 to 200,000, especially in the last kind of couple of months. This number has kind of alarmed people. Number one. Number two, both Department of Homeland Security as well as the DOJ, which has conducted, finds that there are people with, even terrorists and other types of people like, cartels and illegal, people with, less integrity and crimes are making their way into the country. That's number two. The third thing that is even worse is that one number says 10%, another number says 25%, because the reason is that these people are not being tested for COVID. So there is a tremendous influx of COVID-19 infected people coming into the country. Four, they call it a surge. That means that there is an abnormal flow on certain days where what you call Customs and Border Patrol have not been organized to take care of it. If you remember that the CBP order was changed from what you call as investigate and enforce, ICE, investigate, capture, and enforce, to now what you call, most of these officers have been directed to crime detection activities within the same kind of precincts. So therefore, there is no what you call as the immigration control enforcement. Sorry, ICE is immigration control enforcement. There's no ICE process either. So all this is now coming to surface to the extent that Department of Homeland first raised its alarm. Then Biden administration called it as a Federal Emergency Management Act. So they invoked the FEMA to send the FEMA volunteers into the border. So what has happened is this has now reached a stage. It has reached the both chambers in Washington D.C. So now one after the other, including Schumer, has come out. Chuck Schumer has said Biden must act, otherwise this could become an uncontrollable disaster. Nancy Pelosi thinks it's an opportunity for another stimulus. So we will call this as a crisis, and that means the next step is more money to be kind of put in to deal with this. Rather than coming to the core and addressing the issue, this whole border situation has become a daily chore in United States in this political, again, in the political satire.
Trump reclaims case of large-scale voter fraud in Georgia after the Washington Post correction. You can't blame him. Sir, one last thing about this influx of immigrants. I remember an Obama rant in the White House where he said that gerrymandering is completely skewing the way people who's getting voted and elected to Congress and Senate. I think mostly Congress. He went on a rant for a few minutes on that. I'm wondering if this is the net effect of all that.
Look, I think this has been if you look at the Voter Registration Act, which is called as the HR1, you will find that this whole House Resolution 1, this whole thing is around who should vote and who should not vote. And the numbers, anecdotally, without making conspiracy theories, without any investigation, we have no idea on this, 154 million people, which is record number, and record both for President Trump in terms of 74 million, and then for Biden 80 plus million votes, is a record number. So nothing has been done, and everything, a vast amount of it is the postal ballots, right, which was pre-populated and pre-filled and sent out. A vast amount of that is this. So this whole immigration is not immigration, but to what you call make the borders porous, make the borders open. People from Central Asia have already alerted to the fact, Mr. Biden, you said the borders will be open and we can come in, we can come in, we can come in. And people came in with from Guatemala and so on. They called it as the caravans from the Guatemala, El Salvador, and I can't remember the other country. The three countries from Central America, not Central Asia, I stand corrected, Central America came in. And, some of them were sent back from the Mexican border. They got back in. And then there was also this whole issue around the child rejoining, people left on either side of the border, and they should be somehow brought into the reunion. And then there was the shelters that was built up, that was again kind of critiqued by the progressive group within the Democratic Party in the House. So the net result of what you are alluding to is the gerrymandering or the rant that is going on is basically to say that we should be far more compassionate, we should be this, and we should therefore be accommodative in bringing these people on board, but with no checks and balances. While they want to have gun control enforced with lots of checks and balances on both sides, they feel the immigration should be with no checks and balances.
Now, what about Trump's reclamation that there was voter fraud in Georgia, sir? Your thoughts?
I think that he has been consistent about it, and he's basically, standing by his word, and he's saying, investigate. Why you kind of believe me? Investigate and come out. We know that there is, he has extensively used Peter Navarro and as well as the other, resources within the Republican Party who actually looked into this.
In India news, Bangalore scientists discover new state of materials useful to create controllable quantum technologies. What is this new material that they have discovered, sir?
No, what they mean by this new state. Suppose you expose certain materials to nature and use kind of laser and other types of external interferences or intrusions, environmentally you can change the properties, or what they call as the there's a phrase, there's a word that is used, that they can change the properties of these materials, which in turn can be used in quantum technologies. So that is the discovery. So in other words, the materials exposed to the environment, but interfered and influenced through external use of forces such as laser, does provide a mechanism for them to build a quantum technology. That is the controllable quantum technologies is the word that is used. We probably may hear more about it, but given the scientific discovery around this one and its implications, potential implications to both commercial and defense use, it is quite an important kind of a breakthrough.
On the new infrastructure bank, is it going to be a private bank, or is it a public-private partnership, or is it going to be a public bank? Any thoughts?
It will be a PPP type of a public-private bank partnership. So there will be some capital infusion coming from the external parties. What is the percentage? We probably will come to know shortly. But I think that just the cabinet passed. Why I highlighted is that 3 areas where we have identified that you need a vehicle, something like this, so that you don't get caught in this NPA issue in the conventional kind of the large public sector and private sector banks. That's number one. Number two is that the capital allocation principles and the gestation period for recovery of these loans should be different for infrastructure projects, different for MSME, and different for even alternate energy technologies or green energy technologies. We may see, progress around, we may see developments around creation of such entities, at least in these 3 domains.
And the COVID phase 2, which was expected to end by mid-June, is now expected to end much earlier than that. So it looks like India is well on its way to vaccinating its population and getting things under control.
Yeah, mid-September to mid-June. So the original schedule was mid-September. They moved it to mid-June ahead of the schedule. That's one. The second is I have heard anecdotally, and I haven't shared, that I think India on one day injected 3 million vaccines. 3 million people were injected on one single day. That's a very big number if that number holds. I know I've seen a 2 million number, but I gather that it is a 3 million number. So on this basis, I think India is rapidly moving towards the evolution of this vaccination program.
And the United Kingdom Prime Minister Boris Johnson is going to be visiting India in mid-April to renew the ties. I think he was supposed to have come for the Republic Day celebrations and he had to put it off. So now he's coming three months later. What do you think will be the main focus of that visit?
3 things: trade, COVID, arms. Okay, because Britain feels now with a little bit of a gap in what is happening with President Biden, they probably want to leverage that. Remember that Boris Johnson has also taken a very strategic position in the Quad. So therefore, I think this is an overdue on 3 fronts, which is trade as well as the security. And I think there's also some controversial issues, which raked up in the British Parliament, not in January, but now.
January 26, as it turned out, was the day when there was this big, farmer agitation, which kind of made the whole thing ugly. And then that has cascaded its way. And then you had, this discussed by virtue of the specific number of votes the British Parliament was able to pass to discuss the issue, which was wildly critiqued rebutted by the Minister for External Affairs, and I think which was covered by us in PGurus.
Yes, indeed. And so we have to see it's if you go back and look at how the Delhi riots happened exactly on the day President Trump was in Delhi, the farmer agitation may have also been triggered to have the maximum impact on January 26th, when UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson would have come. So this is all looking like the same playbook being played over and over again, but we won't know exactly what happened. We'll leave it at that, and let's hope that the ties become stronger and that the UK Parliament uses its time wisely to discuss issues that concerns its own country's problems, not about India. Now, India's maiden solar mission Aditya L-1 is set for launch by 2021. This satellite will be traveling 1.5 million kilometers to study the sun. So is it going to go on orbit around the sun, or how close can it go to the sun?
I think that's probably the nearest point at which it can reach before it becomes uncomfortable, or before it becomes safe from its objectives, from its orbital objectives. So I think yes, it's likely to go around, and I actually much of those details are not yet kind of available as to how exactly this mission will be conducted. I think this is part of a briefing that was given by Mr. Sivan, the head of ISRO, on a wide range of programs that ISRO is embarking on. So one of these programs is the mission to Sun, or Proximus to Sun, to actually study the various properties.
Now, I want to talk about a few things that's happening in and around Asia. Quad leaders hand Australia a big stick to deal with China. What is this big stick, sir?
Well, I think that Australia is going to be given a sweeping responsibility for, between Indian Ocean to Pacific seas. I think that's what, to put more resources and more from offensive proposition. The reason why that it is the case is that if you recall that this whole Coast Guard, China CCP passed a legislation in its parliament that it will act as a Coast Guard, will act as a navy. It is not meant to be monitoring and maintaining and enforcement. It can fire at any vessel that is coming by, including those which are fisher trawlers. So I think Australia is being told, okay, now your logistical facilities, you are being support capabilities in the event, you have to now move from more offensive type of capabilities to manage and monitor and to enforce, making sure that the maritime gateways are clear and clean and not intruded by the Chinese vessels.
In news around Russia, in news around Europe, Middle East and Africa, Russia gives Twitter a month ultimatum to delete banned content or get blocked. So what got Russia's goat?
Navalny. Agitation in Russia that's being covered, arrests, etc. Twitter is there whenever, to me, Twitter is an unofficial vehicle of the left and the progressives. Who are the people who are on the target? The people who are on the target. Russia, very much Vladimir Putin is on the target. The only challenge that Twitter is going to face is he is not like rest of the leaders. He will enforce. Australia has also enforced to a great extent. You will find that Russia is going to say, you have no business to come here. If you want to act here, then behave. If you don't want to act, if you don't want to follow our rules, get out.
And in COVID-19 news, German cases are growing up exponentially. So Europe is looking at, again, locking down. So we'll wait and give you an update in the next few days as things come along. And Kosovo follows US and Guatemala in moving its consulate to Jerusalem. This is significant news. This is the third country out of 197.
I think Kosovo is raising its head and saying that in this resurgence of the West Asia, Israel, Iran, Iraq, Turkey, Pakistan, and some of the, Syria, Lebanon, Palestine, etc., you find that certain countries are pulling away and becoming much more proactive with Israel, and Kosovo is one of them.
And at least 5 rockets hit Iraqi military base at Balad, which is in the north. This is located north of Baghdad. So is this again a continuation of what has been happening?
Yeah, it's the same area. Around that, we put up a map which shows around the, Tikrit, Erbil type of areas where there has been also the Turkish army crossing over, where you have had the rebels crossing over, which is that pocket. You also have the Kurdish rebels fighting. It's in the same spot. The Iranian or the Iraqi rebels are firing at the US airbase, US base, which is there to protect the resources and as well as to some extent the population.
In markets news, tomorrow is when the Fed will release its minutes of the latest meeting that it had, and markets are awaiting with bated breath what the Fed is going to decide, especially in terms of the interest rates. What do you expect, Sridharji?
I expect interest rates, already there's some early indications. We expect the interest rates to remain zero till 2023, not even 2022. I think he's going to make an announcement that basically say, look, my metrics and scorecard is different. I'm not using the conventional, I'm using the labor metric card, the labor market. Here, I'm not referring to the conventional labor market. I'm referring to those who are deeply unemployed. That's why we have all these social programs going on. Some of these people are deeply depressed. That could be anything from 9 to 20 million people, if you include the 12 million illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, who may be normalized through the process that's coming up. This is the 8-year journey that Biden and co has said. So that's a big number in terms of the population, which is still in what they call as the below poverty line. So there are specific programs, as you are aware, that there are welfare programs. They use the child tax credits as a platform to do it. Then we have Janet Yellen has already indicated that the infrastructure is needed. Biden has indicated infrastructure is needed. Nancy Pelosi has been running the thing on the infrastructure is needed. You cannot have interest rates going up when you're adding more debt, because the cost to the balance sheet bumps up quite significantly.
And that's all we have for today. And we'll be again back tomorrow, same time, same location. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe to PGurus channel. And Sridharji, namaskaram, and thank you once again. We'll be back tomorrow. See you, sir.
Namaskar, and thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.